This is Rob Yang of robertyang.net, and I want to discuss an article that was published in LA Times about high protein with middle-aged Americans being a detriment to their health and maybe causing cancer and diabetes, and then being actually beneficial for someone who's an older population. Now, the first thing you got to always realize is whenever you're looking at some kind of article written by the media, they're always going to look at some type of research from a journal or from some article that is eye-catching, eye-popping, so that we want to pick up the paper and read it, or look on the internet, do whatever, so that we like it on Facebook, whatever that is, tweet about it, so that they get more hits on their, let's say, website. So that's the first thing you always have to be aware of. Now, when you look further into the study and you look at the cell metabolism research that was done, there are many flaws in it. And the first flaw that's huge is that it's an epidemiological study. So in other words, for that, it's a correlative study, meaning that's a correlation that the higher intakes of protein in these middle-aged Americans was possibly leading to increased rates in cancer, diabetes, and other diseases. Now, correlation does not mean causation. So if I give you a simple example, what if I looked at all the subjects and I interviewed them again, the over 6,000 subjects, and I said, well, let's look at the prevalence of skinny jeans in their closet. And we looked at all the 6,000 subjects, and I know this sounds really ridiculous, but follow me on this. We looked at skinny jeans and we found, wow, there's a correlation. The more skinny jeans that these people have, the more rates of cancer, diabetes, heart disease, other disease they have. Now, as ridiculous as that sounds, that's basically the line of thinking that they're using in this epidemiological study. And again, the reason for these epidemiological studies is to do further research on this topic. It doesn't establish causation. So that's the first major problem with the study. Now, another problem with the study is that if you look at how they gathered the data, they had the subjects perform a 24-hour dietary recall. So what that means is they sat them down, they had the interview, ask them, okay, what did you eat 24 hours beforehand you came in the lab? So they just remember, and the researchers wrote that down. So they're taking that one day 24-hour recall and saying that's what they eat on average every single day. Well, that is not a fair representation of what people eat over an 18-year period. So that's another flaw. But let's say hypothetically, let's say that they actually did gather data over, let's say, a month, and they got an average intake of what these Americans ate. And there was actually quite high protein, and they found that correlation. Well, now they've established the quantity, but they haven't established the quality. And as we all know with, let's say, for example, carbohydrates, if we're talking about somebody with diabetes and you want to make sure you inform them, educate them properly on the type of carbohydrates to eat, you have to tell them, well, there's a difference between eating 100 calories of sugar and 100 calories of broccoli. Obviously, that's logic, that's common sense. So if you eat 100 calories of sugar, 100 calories of broccoli, you're going to have a completely different metabolic response as well as a hormonal response. But there's no distinction of quality in this study in regards to protein intake. So we don't know if the person is going to McDonald's twice a day or if they're getting grass-fed meat. But I think it's safely to assume in this situation with an average American diet, the SAD diet, standard American diet, most Americans do not buy grass-fed beef. They buy grain-fed beef. It could be from McDonald's, it could be from the local supermarket, but we know with grain-fed beef, the cows are fed grain, which is highly toxic to them, so they get sick. So that means they have to pump them full of antibiotics, which we're getting antibiotic residues from the meat. They pump them full of growth hormone, which we know gets them plump and fat and juicy really fast. But then we get the residues from growth hormone, which can cause possible increase in cancer rates because of the growth hormone residues. And we haven't even talked about what is consistently in the meat. What the meat consists of is you have high omega-6 levels, which we know that the higher the omega-6 levels, the more inflammation you have in the body, and more research is coming about how inflammation is leading cause for diabetes, cancer, heart disease in particular as well. So as you can see, there's so many different flaws in the study, but yet people are jumping on the bandwagon and say, hey, look, we found proof. High protein is bad for you, especially animal protein, and dairy protein is bad for you. And that goes another thing. They're saying that dairy is bad for you. Like I think CBS News just posted the title that meat and dairy is possibly just as bad as smoking cigarettes as a risk factor. Well, what we know about dairy is that, well, again, we're talking about the quality of dairy, but the protein in dairy, the casein, is the most problematic protein that we can consume as a human. It's highly inflammatory, causes lots of irritation to the intestinal tract, can cause a lot of mucus buildup, which is only an irritant to the immune system and to the body. So for them to say that and extrapolate, say, well, all protein is bad for you, that's just bad science. It's really, really bad science. So the reason I'm posting is that if you have anybody, a colleague or your client or friends that are just on the post, not on the post, but on the fence about whether they should eat animal protein or not, really, hopefully this will clear up the confusion on it and allow them to make an informed decision. And that's really what I want, is an informed decision, so people can make a logical decision as whether to have animal protein in their diet or not. And again, you need animal protein because they have certain amino acids that are missing in plant proteins. That's why you have to eat rice and beans, because they're incomplete proteins. And that's why it's so important to have animal proteins. And we want to have animal proteins that are high quality. So grass-fed meat, free-range organic eggs, organic chicken, wild fish, etc. So we want some quantity, but we also want quality. That's one of the big factors. So hopefully this has cleared up some confusion, and hopefully you enjoyed this video and this vlog. And until next time, remember, eat well to feel well.